Welcome to Coffee in the Library. This is episode 5 to commemorate us getting to this landmark episode. One that we haven't really gotten to with anything else. Now, the pastor's studio has been going on for quite a while, but this is episode 5, landmark episode. So we're having a special episode. With us in the library, we have Chisomo Wakumelo and Pastor Sivale. We have Nathan on sound and Willa on the camera. So in this episode, we are trying to find out from Chisomo Wakumelo. She's got a really good project she's getting off the ground. It is called A Journey Through Child Loss. A Journey Through Child Loss. It will be on Facebook, and it is basically a platform in which the issue of child loss will be spoken about, because there's a lot of information that is going around about how to deal with child loss that is people mean well, but it doesn't do a good job because it's not really founded on the solid foundation of the scriptures. And so Chisomo, thank you very much for joining us. What exactly is the page about? Could you enlighten us a bit?
Okay, so A Journey Through Child Loss is basically a page that seeks to share with the world what I have passed through in the loss of my children through miscarriage as well as stillbirth. So that page basically just aims to share that story with the rest of the world. What I have discovered is that child loss is not something that is spoken outside the homes frequently, and I'm hoping to actually reach out to many women who have gone through this, who are suffering behind closed doors, and they don't have anyone they could actually talk to, or get the information on how to maneuver this situation or the loss that they've just experienced. So that is my hope as well. And then to reach out to the community, whether it be relatives, friends, the church as well, how to better be able to be there for the grieving parents. So basically that's what the page is all about.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Have you found that there is a taboo almost around talking about child loss, or are people free to talk about it in the Zambian context?
What I've discovered actually is that it's something that is hushed. I remember when I was having one of my losses, I was told, no, don't cry. Don't cry about it. Don't talk about it. Just move on. Yeah, you have another one. And then, I would have elderly women as well telling me the same. So in Zambia, it's basically something that is, it's a taboo to talk about, maybe to use that phrase. And it's like you are walking on thin ice if you talk about it. Most women don't even want to open up about it. You only get to know that someone has actually lost a child when you've actually gone through it, and then they'll visit your home and tell you, oh, I actually went through this and this and this and this, and you're like, oh, okay, but your lives look so perfect. I wouldn't have guessed that this is what is actually going on. So it's more or less kept in the hushed kind of environment.
So Pastor, maybe you can jump in on this. How do we view an issue that culturally is viewed as a taboo? How can we think about it? Of course, what we want to be gracious as we handle it. Some people are like hammers, others completely view it as an issue not to talk about. So just generally, when we're thinking of issues that are cultural taboos, like this issue of child loss, how should we think about it even before we begin the conversation with the grieving parents?
Firstly, as Christians, I think our final appeal is the scriptures.
Mhm.
So we need to say, what does God's word say?
Yeah.
In I think First Peter chapter 1 verse 18, actually Peter there is trying to help the people see that, look, you are redeemed from the corruptible things, from the traditions that you picked from your forefathers.
Mhm.
And it's basically you've been redeemed. Now, most of us don't realize how much we've been affected by how we've been brought up until you are faced with a situation, and then we really don't know what to do. Even as Christians, sometimes we go into a default system of being cultural or traditional. So we need to uphold the scriptures and apply the scriptures in any given context or situation, and that's a starting point.
Yeah.
And so if we start from there, even our situation will be that first of all, we don't even need to go there and say, look, God is sovereign. She knows. It's a real pain that she's going through.
Yeah.
I think she needs to be helped, or people going through need to be helped, first of all, to realize or understand that the pain they're going through is pain that is genuine, and we've recognized that. And therefore, as we come along, it's to grieve with them, or at least to be their support system, not so much to try and speak into what we do not understand. When we go to them, we need to help them see that we are coming as a support system, not as masters or experts to speak into what we do not understand.
Yeah.
So oftentimes that's why we make a mistake as Christians.
Yeah.
It's not like the people grieving don't know the scriptures.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
But that's pain they're going through.
Yeah.
And I think Paul talks about, God comforts us as we comfort others. So the best would be then for you to appreciate what they're going through is you need to understand the loss that they've gone through.
Yeah. So it's like there are two aspects to this. The first side where we are overcompensating. We come in and we start saying things that the people know.
Yeah.
And the other extreme is where, because we don't know what to say, we make it a taboo. Yeah. So Chisomo, when viewing this issue, where do you think we fall in our in the way we treat this issue as Zambians? Or is it split 50-50? People come in and they are telling you things that you already know, or they pretend it doesn't happen. What goes on?
It's basically a mixture. People who want to tell you, not actually want, people who tell you what you already know, and then there are people who, in their genuine concern, are insensitive in that situation, and then there are those who hush it up. So it's like a threefold kind of reaction that Zambians have towards it.
Yeah. And since it really is a taboo issue, how in you setting up this page, trying to get people to talk about it, it's as though you want to remove it from the realm of taboo. So how does that work? How should we think about such an issue?
Well, for starters, we should have a correct view of life. It begins with the correct view of life in the womb. From the word go, there is a person living in a woman's womb. And already that mother and that father have bonded with that child to a level that other people have not bonded with the child. And when they lose that child, I love to refer to the clump of cells as his child.
Yeah, it is a child. That is a human being made in the image of God. Yeah.
Yes. So when they lose that child, for them, they have lost a person whom they were in a way interacting with, more especially the mother.
Yeah.
Yes. So would you repeat the question?
Yeah. No, that's actually good. So the interaction between the parents, especially the mother and the child, it has been happening over the course of the pregnancy.
Yes.
It's not something that just begins when the baby has been born. Is that basically it?
Yes.
Yeah. That's very interesting. So the view of life should be a biblical one about how life begins at conception.
Yeah. And I think I agree with her.
Yeah.
We need to have a high view of life.
Yeah.
When does life begin?
Yeah.
Especially now that the talk of abortion
Yeah.
is so rampant
Yeah.
that people try to justify that a fetus or a child in the mother's womb is actually just a tissue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a clump of
Yeah.
cells. Yeah.
In Psalm 51, actually David said, I was conceived in my mother's womb in iniquity.
Yeah.
He's recognizing that life did not begin when I was seen. It began way back. And sometimes we even forget our simple biology, what we learned in school.
Yeah.
So the mother and the child are already bonding. They're sharing a lot of things. The father is also expecting. So there are those dynamics. And that's what I'm saying, until you've been in this situation, you will not appreciate what they're going through. So even those who say, no, why are you crying? It wasn't even a child. Your kids are adults, so you've seen them come out of your womb, but you're with them.
Yeah.
I was expecting the similar
Experience.
and the gift, and then you're telling me it was nothing. So what was it then? You get the point?
Yeah.
So sometimes I think if you don't know what to say, just be like Job's friend. Just sit there and keep quiet.
You've raised a very interesting point. The interesting thing about taboos is people actually think they are being nice in not talking about it. They think what they are doing is helpful, almost. Maybe if we do not tell the person about their loss, they will forget. Do you think that's the case? People actually they think they are being nice, or is it a fear-based approach? How would you view this issue, Chisomo? Do people think they are being nice in not mentioning it, or maybe they would feel being silent is not helpful? How would you view this issue?
Well, certainly when people go in this kind of situation where they have a grieving friend or relative, they go with a lot of confusion as to how I have to respond to this person who's grieving. For others, it's easier for them to keep quiet or not to try and avoid bringing it up because it might actually hurt the grieving parent. They don't want to see the person crying or being or weepy. The other response that usually is there is these certain standards that they bring forward with them, and no, don't cry, do this. If you do this, you avoid experiencing it again, or even giving you suggestions on how to actually grieve. So basically, people have got different reactions to that situation. Yeah, and it's easier for other people to just be quiet and not bring it up, and for others, they feel led to actually talk about to bring about biblical truths that actually the parents may know. In some cases, it's because they want to actually share the good news with someone, to comfort them biblically, but in weird way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The scriptures in Ecclesiastes speak of a time for everything, right? A time to speak, or a time of silence. How can somebody from the outside think of it? How can they determine the time to speak and the time of silence? Either one of you can chime in on this.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, the first respondent must always be people that are very close to the family.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, a pastor comes in because at that level you feel you're close,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that you are a pastor to the couple.
Yeah.
But I think the first respondents are always very close, because those are the ones, probably the parents, were sharing a lot of news and information with them. So the family, to both the man and the woman, then the couple's closest friends. To me, I think those are the first respondents that would really understand what they are going through to a large extent than most of us. And then after this circle of respondents, we'll have those that have gone through a similar situation. They may not be close to the couple, but they've got something in common. They've gone through a similar thing, so that even when they're opening up, they're not just talking from without. They feel what you're feeling, and then they can share from their experience and what made them to move forward. The example I could give from the Bible of such respondents is, remember the case in John 11. Lazarus is dead, and the Bible tells us Jesus wept. Well, he loved Lazarus. When they get there, what do the sisters say? Lord, if you are here, this would not have happened, because they recognize that Lazarus was close to the Lord Jesus Christ. And so they're not just saying because he's a son of God. I think they're saying this person was very close to this. Somehow things would have been different, or would have been helped in terms of grieving. Then there were the Jews, if you remember, who even Christ, when he looked at them and how they're trying to comfort Lazarus' sisters, was not in a very helpful way. So we need to recognize that. Now, sometimes as Africans, and particularly as Zambians, we mean well, but sometimes we go too far. So we need to firstly allow the close respondents to do their bit. Then us, when we come in, we provide that overall support system. But sometimes we find that even before the immediate respondents are notified, we find we're already putting on Facebook, WhatsApp, and things like that. Now, we mean well, but that's not helpful to the couple. So we need to appreciate that and to know when to be silent. And I think that's a time when something has immediately happened. That's a time for us to be silent if we're not in any of these immediate circle of friends, as it were.
You've brought up a very interesting aspect. What are some of the ungracious ways, the ungracious responses that people can have to the loss of a child, before the child has been delivered, or even the loss of a young child? Since basically we're saying a life is a life. It's somebody made in the image of God, whether they have been carried full term or not. What are some of the ungracious responses that come up?
Well. Okay. One painful one is you have another one. You have another baby. For me, that is a wrong view of life, because that person who passed on is also life. And it's not like when you have a baby you want to replace that baby. No, because I can say if Pastor Sibale's mom, sorry, this is just
no, it's all right. It's all right.
Yes. If she lost you, either through miscarriage or stillbirth or whatever, there wouldn't be another person who is like you. You are unique. God has made you in such a way that there's no one who's going to be like you on earth. So to tell a mother you have another one, it's like you're telling her to replace something that she can't really replace. Even when a mother has another one, it's not like she'll forget that loss. It's always there. It always goes with her to the grave. So that's one of the responses that are actually ungracious.
So it keeps coming back to a right view of life, and I find that interesting. In that there are ways in which we communicate that we do not have a right view of life. Some of the ones that we mentioned here display this. So how do we go about having a right view of life, so that even before we are helping somebody, or we know somebody going through this, how do we gain a right view of life, and what is a right view of life?
Well, I think we've already hinted to it, is the fact that at conception, life has started. So that's where we need to start from. We need to ask ourselves, so when is a child a child, or when is a baby a baby? Is it when now we've heard the cry in the hospital ward, or that 9 months period? Because life has started. And those of us that have experienced the gift of having children, you're doing scans, they show you see legs, that's life. So it's already started. So we need to recognize that. And each stage of the pregnancy, it's a journey on its own. And it's a journey on its own, but also it's a journey that is bringing up expectations or longing to actually see now the child come physically. So we need to have that in mind. And once we have that in mind, we also need to recognize that it's God who gives, and it's God who is with the parent and with the child in the womb, and then it's also God who's creating all the desires to actually see the child come forth. So we need to get back to the scriptures, which tell us about the origins of life.
You mentioned that there's the advice or the things that people say do not help. Do not help the grieving parents. One of them has to do with the man, the husband, the father. There's probably common responses there. You should be strong. Don't show weakness. In this, what is the role of the father? In fact, there's actually the way we view it in a Zambian context is more like the child belongs to the mother for the formative years, right? For the first the first 6, 7, 8 years, and then the father can now come in and begin to provide guidance. So is this something that is commonly thought of? And Chisomo, how can people help the father go through this? Should he be told to be strong, for his wife to not show any emotion? What would you say about this view?
One thing we shouldn't forget is that the father is human. He has also been given the emotional aspect of humanity. And he was well vested in his child from conception as well. So to tell him to be strong at a time when he should actually express his emotion is dangerous. personally, to give an example, when we first lost our first set of children, that's what my husband was told: be strong for her, don't show emotion. And you would catch the man once in a while, shedding tears, and I'm like, okay, this is actually real for men as well. He should be taught to grieve, and if a man does not grieve, there's a wrong way he will actually grieve. So men should be encouraged to grieve. They shouldn't be encouraged to be strong. And despite the role that they take on in a family, the leader, he still has to be there emotionally as well for the wife, to help her, to lead her actually emotionally as well. But he also needs that close circle of friends, good friends, who lead him as well, and they can also be, like Pastor Swale said, a support system for him as well, so that he can actually stand up strong as a man. So he shouldn't be told to be strong. He should have his support system as well, so that he can be strong for the wife.
You've brought an interesting aspect that I did not make the connection to before. In us thinking or saying that grief is a taboo, right? We are basically saying grief is a not just a weak emotion, but it is a sinful emotion that should not be had or experienced. Is there such a thing as a wrong emotion or a sinful emotion? Is there such a thing?
Well, I think grief is a right response, or it's an emotional response to a loss. That is so, and that loss is something that is dear. Now, what I would term, before I get that, what I would term as maybe wrong or sinful, evil, if that emotion is, if for instance, if you look at what is it that you are grieving over. Sometimes it could be, I'm grieving over a shirt that I thought if I wore that shirt, I will stand out. Okay, or if what I'm grieving over became an idol and took first place in my life. But the genuine blessings of the Lord, when we lose them, we must grieve. And actually it takes a strong man to cry. Those who hold tears are actually weak, because when they're away from people, they weep. So when there is a loss of a child, let's allow people to weep. Let's allow them to express their grief. If it's shedding tears as a couple, let them do so. Don't even try and interfere at that moment. That's an emotional response to the loss. So give them time to do so. Jesus wept for Lazarus. Now, are we saying he sinned? He was responding to the loss at hand, and Jesus wept. So we must allow a man to weep. Allow the wife to weep. Let them weep as a couple. Let them weep as a family. So let's not say, no, things happen. No. You've never lost a child. You lose a child and then come and tell me, then we'll listen to you.
Maybe. Not even then, but maybe then.
You lose a cell phone, you cry. Now you want a mother not to cry over a child.
And tying it back to the right view of life, grief, just like you made the connection, grief shows that you are treating the blessing of God like it was a blessing of God. Right? So a right view of grief is the blessings that the Lord has given you when they are lost. Right, in God's sovereignty at His time, when they are lost, grief is a right response, because you're showing that you value it. You placed high value on on what was given. Would you say that's the right way of viewing it, Chisomo?
Yes. When it stems from the right view of life, from the right view of the source of life, then that kind of grief is valid. But then there is also a wrong way of grieving. Let me give a scenario where the man is taught to be strong. He buries that emotion deep within him, and he makes himself very busy to do this, to do that, to attend to people coming, and he leaves the wife alone, and he's trying to bury that grief within him. The dangers there are a lot. There's a lot of scenarios where men have rushed to pornography, to eating, to just making themselves busy, drinking, amongst others. So if you do not grieve, so to say, biblically, you actually lose your way, you backslide. Yeah.
A right way to grieve. That's an interesting way of thinking about it. What is a right way to grieve?
Certainly not suppressing your emotions, like she said. Because when you suppress something, it's not gone. It's just suppressed for a while. And it's like when it will come with full force, and you bash. Now, when a right view is where you've accepted the blessing, you've accepted the source, and now you've recognized you've lost it. Because once you've accepted the blessing, let's start with the source and the blessing. Then it helps you to realize that, look, I cannot just replace this because I didn't manufacture it. I mean, if I bought a phone, I just need to look for money and get another one. But when I realized that God is the source of life, and it pleased him to give it to us at a particular time, and this is gone, taken away from us by divine providence. We don't have any power within us to just say, okay, we will have another one. So it's at that point that you now begin to realize, Lord, we've lost your blessing. And you know what that meant to us. And Lord, why? And then help us to get over this. Remember when David lost his son Absalom? He cried, oh my son, if only I had died. Now they are saying, hey, when you read the scriptures, as we're saying, hey, David, this is the guy who's trying to take over your king. That was his son. It doesn't matter the circumstance, that was his son. A young life. And so the father is saying, if only I had died instead of you. He recognized that whatever my son was trying to do, he was my son, a gift from the Lord. So we must recognize the source, God, the blessings. And the blessing is not something that we can manufacture or demand. So once that is gone, we grieve. We grieve.
And maybe perhaps to close it off, you've both mentioned the issue of suppressing the grief. So Chisomo mentioned you might want to just not let it out. Just you keep it to yourself. That could be one way of suppressing it. And Pastor Sivali, you've mentioned you try to be busy, or you hide behind. I'm trying to provide for my spouse because they are grieving. And just to connect it to the final thing, you mentioned that it takes bravery, it takes courage. Yes, it takes a strong man to grieve, because you are choosing not to run away from what is going on. From a Zambian cultural point of view, it takes a strong. We think it takes a strong man not to grieve. A strong man is the one who holds everyone up, and he doesn't feel anything. So how should we think of, is there a is there a way we can see it if somebody is somebody who is grieving is going about it in the wrong way? How can we graciously and gently have that conversation with them, where we're trying to show, of course this is if we are close, as you said, you are the closest ones to the person who has had the loss, to the people who've had the loss. If you do see them going about their grief in a wrong way, how can that conversation be had? Because you want to be gracious, you want to be loving, you don't want to whip someone who is grieving. You don't want to make their grief worse. So Chisomo, what maybe you can go first, then Pastor. How do we help somebody if we see them going about their grief in the wrong way?
Firstly, befriend them. Yeah, you just can't go to someone who's a stranger and tell them, oh no, do this. It goes back to the first
Yes.
question we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And then if you can't befriend them, look for someone who's close to them and approach them. The other way you could actually do it is get a book. Yeah, that talks about loss, and and then gift it to them. Yeah. So those are the three ways you can actually help them out, apart from praying for them and just visiting them, checking up on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pastor, what would you say? How can we graciously speak to somebody if we see them going about or viewing grief in the wrong way, by probably trying to run away from it or avoid it?
Yes. If you're a church elder or a pastor, obviously you'll be called upon, or you feel, look, I need to provide oversight, or at least shepherding them. So you need to be there. Ask them questions, and those questions must be the way they respond helps you to see whether they want to talk about it or not. So if they don't want to talk about it, so you need to establish where is it because they don't want to face the reality of what has happened, or why don't they want to talk about it? Normally, a person who's grieving, who would like to talk about their grief, one or the other, they would like to talk about the loss. They would like to talk about a number of things. When they conceived, if it's a child lost, the joy they had, the names they were thinking about, the plans they had, and all those things. So that way they begin to open up. You begin to try and get windows into their lives. But if someone doesn't want to talk about it, then it could be they haven't come to terms with the loss, and hence they need to help them talk about that. But then, if you are not close to the couple, maybe give them time. Let the first respondents go there. There are some of us as Christians who feel we have a divine right to be heard in any given situation. Now, we need to humble ourselves and say there are certain things no one wants to hear your voice at this particular time. The least you could do is pray for them, rather than go in and say, no, do this, do that. But who are you to begin with? So we need to recognize that as believers. But then also, for a Christian family, the Lord has dealt with us differently and has taken us through different avenues in life. We know of older couples or mature couples that would have experienced child loss, and let them go, let them open up. Then the couple begin to see, oh, okay, so this is what you've gone. There's that area of common interest, as it were. So we allow those because how they've processed it over the years gives hope and comfort to the couple grieving, because it's not just theoretical.
Yeah.
They've gone through it,
Yeah.
and they've journeyed through it together.
Yeah.
And then the other issue is give them a book
Yeah.
to read. But again, you can't. You need to be wise.
Yeah.
Someone can, they lose a child today, tomorrow you bring them a book.
Yeah. Yeah. There has to be
No,
some wisdom.
Yeah, there must be wisdom as well.
Yeah.
Give them time. Maybe after some weeks or a month, and say, well, we've been praying for you, and we came across this book, and we think it can speak to your situation.
Yeah.
And then pass it on to them.
Yeah.
The other times that could be, as they are grieving, just cook a meal or take something for them. That's all.
Yeah.
You don't even say, just take a meal or cook a meal, give it to the close friends who you know that they will be there.
Yeah.
And let them have that meal. They only come to know maybe years later that actually that meal was from Pastor Svali. That's why there was no salt. But at least then they would appreciate that in that moment they knew that the last thing we have in our minds was to eat.
Yeah.
And someone thought about that and provided what we needed.
Yeah. The thing that has crossed my mind as you both have been speaking is the necessity of right conversations around the issue of grief. And it would be wrong to think that the only people involved in this are the person who has had the loss and their close friends, right? Because those of us who are on the outside, if we do love the people who are grieving, even though we are not that close, this is a time to pray for them, because we know that my presence there does nothing for them. Right, I'm not close enough whereby if I'm there, they will be comforted. But we make praying for them something that we deliberately do, because now we are showing that we are leaning upon God to comfort them. We know that we are unable to comfort them, and so God is there. But also, our people who are around us, whether it is dependents or people we are discipling, this is also a time to have those conversations with them about what grief is, about what's going on. And the example that we show to dependents, children, or people we are discipling, if we are going about this in the right way, is showing them that prayer is dependence on God to help people. Prayer is dependence on God because we know God goes much further than we ever could. And so as we are praying and having the right conversations, we are helping future generations better understand what grief is and how they can be involved in it. It's not about you. It's almost as though we make the person's grief about us. Do I have the right thing to say? Do I have the right outlook? But it's not about you. And by making it a prayer issue, you are showing a reliance on God for God to work in their lives. And so it's really a sensitive issue, but it is something that must be spoken about. And so Chisomo, we're really hoping the page that you're setting up on Facebook, A Journey Through Child Loss, is something that can provide encouragement to people, a platform, so that we can minister into the lives of people who are grieving. Yeah. So thank you very much for joining us. This has been a special episode of Coffee in the Library with Chisomo Wakumelo and Pastor Chipita Sivale. We are talking about the page on Facebook, A Journey Through Child Loss, and we hope that you have been blessed as you have heard it, and we hope you will find the page, send people who are going through a similar experience to go to the page, so that we may all get something beneficial from God's word from that. Thank you very much. We will see you next time.